Hey Kings, welcome back to the Augustus Maximus channel. We're back playing some Fallout 4 America Rising, Tale of the Enclave mod. And yeah, we're just about to go to talk to the good doctor, because those are the orders that we've received. So let's get to it.
Doctor.
Not the most glamorous workplace, I'll admit. I assume the General sent you?
Yeah.
Good. Down to business then. I need you to recover some important equipment from the underground military facility. We can't risk them being found by the wrong people. The items you'll be looking for are a hactane capacitor, an automated analyzer, a Tiraski scanner, and an FEV sample.
Gonna need some more information.
Where to start? It was quite the sprawling base, consisting of multiple sectors connected by a private underground metro system. We've concluded that one of the tunnels must have given way, allowing some unwanted guests into the facility. We don't know who or what is in there, but you'll likely need to fight your way through them.
What are you working on?
Once you've retrieved the items I need, I'll be able to begin work needed to clean up the mess that the Great War caused. In the meantime, I'll try to make this space a little more workable.
I'll get right on it.
Good luck.
Alright, so we're about to head over and grab a whole bunch of ingredients from some sort of military underground military facility, which should be easy enough. I mean, this character should basically handle anything that comes our way, mostly because I'm apparently way over-leveled, and I've stockpiled quite a lot of very useful equipment, but I think the leveling within this mod, or the required levels within this mod, aren't exactly very well balanced, because if you do it around level 15, which is the recommended level, then you're a little bit under-leveled, in fact, because you just don't have enough time to grab some of the better equipment. And because the Brotherhood of Steel provides a lot of very good equipment, you're also locked out of that option. Because obviously you're playing the Enclave, you're not going to side with the Brotherhood of Steel. And so, yeah, it's sort of a catch-22, but ultimately I think we'll be fine just going around grabbing a whole bunch of stuff for the good doctor. But since I haven't actually discovered anything on the map, because obviously this playthrough's only purpose was this mod, I think I'm gonna skip quite a lot of the travel time. Alright, here we go. Much closer to the facility than initially, with my good old service rifle, which is a mod that is going to be present, or one of the main parts of the Fallout 4 New Vegas, I think is the name of the upcoming... Oh, there we go. There's some conflict up ahead. This actually reminds me, because last time I talked about how the Enclave wasn't actually all that terrible in terms of the actual lore-wise split between the different, let's say, approaches of the Enclave. It reminds me that within the East Coast? Yeah, the East Coast, where Bethesda games actually take place, so Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. There is a very good argument for the Enclave being the pragmatic option, because within Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 2 and Fallout 1, obviously, well, Fallout 1 not so much, but within Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas definitely, you already have a sort of very big governmental systems present, which is the NCR, as well as Caesar's Legion to a certain degree, even though that's not exactly the West Coast per se. That's sort of more the middle, or sort of a little bit further away from the West Coast. But ultimately, Caesar came from the NCR anyway, so it doesn't actually matter. But on the East Coast, you don't necessarily have a lot of options when it comes to like governmental systems or governments in general. It's sort of an anarchic, it's sort of an anarchic, not entirely a state, but it functions within a state of anarchy. Let's say you don't necessarily have an overbearing governmental system. You could argue that in Fallout 4, the Brotherhood of Steel is ultimately something like an Enclave entity that could unify could unify the region within a single government or something akin to that. But the Brotherhood functions essentially just like a military. It's sort of like a military order of sorts, like a Teutonic order or something like that. From obviously historical perspective, they even basically give themselves the ranks of individual of a military order essentially. And so, while that is an interesting idea, I don't think that the Brotherhood has achieved that level of openness. Because while the Brotherhood, some people don't dislike what they've done with it in Fallout 4, I think it's sort of ultimately a good way of showcasing sort of a slowly opening entity. Because obviously within the lore of Fallout 2, not exactly, but within the lore of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, definitely Fallout New Vegas, your big quest when it comes to the Brotherhood of Steel is to try and get them to open up a bit to the outside world. That's definitely what we see in Fallout New Vegas. And in Fallout 3, I think the opening up has been done not in the most spectacular way, and I think the Fallout 4 approach is a much more natural progression. Yep, more combat. That's the state of anarchy. But within Fallout, there exists a very similar order, obviously, or not an order, but a very similar, let's say, group to the Brotherhood of Steel that would be very efficient when dealing with, let's say, this type of situation, and they do aspire to actually have governing power, and that is the Enclave. And I think if you have sort of a logical approach to this whole situation, the Enclave, as let's say from the military junta approach, which isn't the approach of purging everything, but mostly to try and rebuild, rebuild the wasteland within their that iBot, which basically tries to rebuild the entire wasteland within their sort of own image, which ultimately was sort of the goal of the military junta, or the military portion of the Enclave within Fallout 3, as we talked about last time. And I think that group actually could have been a very, very useful, that portion of the group could have been a very useful tool in actually trying to rebuild the East Coast, because in Fallout 3 ultimately you defeat them, right? But what replaces them? What kind of system does replace the potential Enclave system? Well, nothing really. I mean, you have the Brotherhood who sticks around a little bit and tries to quote-unquote help the wasteland, but obviously the Enclave then changes quite a bit with the new Elder, and a very different approach to the whole situation. It's not so much about helping the wasteland anymore. It's again about trying to maintain order within the realms of technology and everything like that. So we sort of see a return to the original ideals of the Brotherhood from Fallout 1 and 2, and to a certain degree New Vegas. And so I think a very good replacement for something like that would have been actually the Enclave, because, well, they actually are trying to rebuild America, right? At least Augustus Autumn and his whole group is. And so I think, you ultimately defeat the group in Fallout 3, but if you hadn't beaten them, then maybe Fallout 4 could have been a little bit more interesting from a story perspective, obviously, because then you would maybe had sort of an alliance between the Enclave and the Brotherhood trying to take down the Institute or something like that. But ultimately, the Wasteland would have actually been better off than it is right now, because, well, you could have saved a lot of lives, could have eliminated a lot of ghouls, could have eliminated a lot of raiders, could have eliminated a lot of super mutants who are basically just orcs in the Bethesda games. So, yeah, ultimately I think the Wasteland would have been better off. Here we go, here's the abandoned facility, or the ruined military metro, which sounds kind of cool. But, yeah, so returning to the point that I was just making, I mean, what sort of other governmental system could have taken over on the East Coast? I mean, you do have the Minutemen, not the Militiamen, the Minutemen. But the Minutemen are extremely, well, it's a good cause. You know, it's a good cause in theory, but ultimately what you see is that they aren't especially well organized. It's basically a loose agreement. It's a handshake that individual settlements will help each other. But I think that sort of agreement will basically just go down the toilet or down the drain or whatever you want to say the minute that one of these settlements gets attacked by like a group of Deathclaws or a group of super mutants. I think that something of that magnitude, because the individual settlements and the settlers themselves, they're basically just farmers, if you really think about it. At most, if you actually go with the Minutemen, they do get like basic submachine guns if you do equip them, but if you don't equip them, they have maybe like pipe rifles, pipe revolvers, and everything of the sort, which is ultimately just trash, right? It's just trash. Or maybe even the laser muskets, which have abysmal fire rates, have terrible damage, and don't necessarily do anything. And you really think that that group of basically just farmers who are not necessarily doing anything meaningful when it comes to reclaiming the wasteland, when it comes to like military action or anything like that. I think that sort of group of farmers would be able to tackle a big group of super mutants, like, or Deathclaws, or anything like that. Or even like an invasion of ghouls or something, I don't really know. There's a lot of stuff in the wasteland. And so, and would they even be willing to help each other if they hear that, hey, this settlement is under attack, but it's being attacked by like 50 super mutants or something like that? Would they actually come and help? You know, the 3 farmers with their pipe revolvers, would they actually come and help? Or would they just shrug it off and say that, I guess, wasn't much to the Minutemen anyway? You know, that's ultimately what sort of vibe I'm getting from the Minutemen, because there isn't sort of an overarching organization that basically supplies weapons and everything like that to these individual farmers. It's mostly just a handshake and an agreement, and there isn't like anything cohesive that would join these individual groups at all. There isn't an ideal, there isn't anything like that, there isn't sort of this overarching ideology. There's nothing that really unites these farmers within the wasteland, and so I think that, well, the Minutemen are an interesting group. That raider is just, okay, whatever. While there is a sort of a higher ideal in, for example, the Enclave, or even the Brotherhood, the Kaiser's Legion, or even the NCR to a certain degree, or at least initially within the NCR, there was sort of a higher ideal of sort of rebuilding the world as it used to be. Whereas within like the Minutemen, there is no ideology. It's just, let's help each other and let's shake hands on it and stuff like that. And here you go. Here's a good laser musket. You have to wind it up for quite a while before you can shoot, by the way. Yeah, that's not gonna last at all. And other than the Minutemen, and maybe the Brotherhood, if you really like go far out way into the future for like 100 years, maybe they start building or rebuilding some sort of civilization. There isn't really anything within the East Coast that could even potentially become a government or a government organization. I mean, you have the Republic of Dave, which obviously is going to annex the entire world, but apart from that, there isn't really anything to save, let's say, these the individuals within the East Coast. That would just save them, because otherwise they're just going to become food for the next evil organization of these games. But we're about to pick up one of the items, and it's been defended by raiders, which is a little bit lackluster, right? I thought that since it's a military facility, we might want to face some gunners or something like that. Oh, here we go.
We know who you're working for. The Enclave are a threat to the Commonwealth and its people. They don't care about anyone trying to make a living out there. They just want to eradicate them. They are sworn enemies of the Brotherhood of Steel, and if you don't put an end to this, you will be too.
I don't care about the Commonwealth.
You're delusional. can't let you do this. Open fire!
Here we go, here are the boys in armor. It's about time, I guess, because killing raiders and ghouls and stuff like that, it gets old fairly quick. But I haven't actually done, yeah, there we go, failed fire support. Haven't even actually done anything with the Brotherhood yet. Haven't even done the main quest, nothing like that. And so this is a little bit awkward from like the storyline or the timeline perspective, but well, it doesn't really matter. Let's just pretend we all know that the Brotherhood eventually comes to the Commonwealth anyway. No matter what you do, they eventually come and well, purge the Institute, I suppose. But yeah, so back to the point I was talking about. Even Diamond City, the Great Green Jewel, the biggest settlement, well, the most defended settlement, everything like that within the Commonwealth, even they are having serious issues with super mutants basically 5 meters from their doorstep. The minute you walk out of Diamond City, or even when you're walking into Diamond City, essentially, you get shredded. Potentially, if you're low level, you get absolutely shredded, not only by raiders, but by super mutants and everything like that. Even the biggest settlement, the most well-defended, the best equipped, everything like that settlement from within the Commonwealth, essentially, is having issues actually protecting itself effectively and sort of and the surrounding area. You can go more Brotherhood members, which is sort of curious that they'd be already here in such hefty numbers, but there we go, we can just purge them all. And yeah, so even the biggest settlement is having trouble with super mutants. So within the Minutemen philosophy, what kind of hope do the individual like farming settlements have if even the biggest settlement within the Commonwealth isn't able to? Okay, that was a big misclick, but yeah, that's a good motto as well. There we go, that's what I want. Okay, big fail, doesn't matter. Maybe I should have put more points into strength or something, but okay, these are the gunners. I have a mod that basically makes them friendly early on, and since I haven't actually done anything within the quest line, it doesn't mean that they're not going to be hostile. But since that's cheating, let's just go ahead with this. And I kind of like that they also included sort of a conflict between the gunners and the Brotherhood of Steel. Sort of makes sense that this military facility wouldn't be sought after only by, let's say, the Enclave, but also by the Brotherhood of Steel and the Enclave and the gunners and the raiders and everyone like that, because for one, it's a really good position to be in. It's a really defensible position. It's sort of hidden underground, and so you don't have to worry about constant invasions by like super mutants or anything like that. And well, actually, if we were recovering FEV, you'd think that there would be super mutants somewhere around here, right? But we haven't really seen anyone, but the Brotherhood are here, so maybe they've already purged them all. Not entirely sure. We'll just have to see what happens and what comes of it. But I suppose we only are here to recover the FEV, not necessarily. It doesn't really mean that they've actually. Okay, that's a piece of glass, but or you know, plastic, whatever. It's impenetrable. Okay, so we are only here to recover the FEV, not necessarily. There isn't any sort of evidence that they've used it to create super mutants or anything like that. So there we go. But so yeah, so I think the Minutemen philosophy, while it's kind of interesting, ultimately I think they would serve as an interesting unifier, maybe sort of a local group that could work with either the Brotherhood or the Enclave, but the Minutemen on their own are absolutely pathetic. And I think it's sort of, when it comes to the story of Fallout 4, it's sort of implied that they'd be working with the Brotherhood, because you can go ahead and do both a Minutemen playthrough and a Brotherhood playthrough, and it's sort of railroady when it comes to actually completing the story. You're first supposed to really go with the Minutemen and the Brotherhood, because you can't necessarily join the Institute unless you've already been within the Institute or came inside the Institute, and you can't necessarily find a railroad unless you're actively going down one of these paths, which usually are aligned with the Brotherhood or the Minutemen. So it's it's a little railroady. I suppose they do give you the option, but oh boy, when we're talking about governments, don't even mention the railroad, because that's completely pathetic. That is one of the most pathetic things that I've ever seen. Here we go, more gunners, more elimination. There we go. It's yeah, I suppose we were supposed to come. No, I mean, didn't they hear the gunshots ahead? But I suppose they're just trying to defend whatever comes this way. Maybe they're trying to hold off the Brotherhood or something like that. But it's actually quite a nice conflict. It's an interesting conflict that the Brotherhood and the Gunners would be sort of going against each other. Because logically speaking, the Gunners, they don't necessarily have much of an advantage. The Gunners are in a very similar position to the NCR when they went against the Brotherhood of Steel in Fallout New Vegas, within the lore of Fallout New Vegas, for Helios 1. They are basically just armed with regular guns and Molotovs and everything like that, and uniforms and helmets and stuff like that. Whereas the Brotherhood is armed to the teeth with, well, whatever the Brotherhood is armed with, you know, power, laser rifles, power armor, everything like that. And here we go, the last bit, I think. Oh no, we have to still find a way into the FEV storage. Well, okay. Okay, someone's up there who... Okay, that's Peterson. So it's nice to see a friendly face down here. It's the journal there. Okay, so, but you could have come, you know, sooner a little bit. You could have just the good general could have just sent you with me right off the bat. It would have been a little bit better, I think. Would have been a little bit cooler. Oh, here we go. Here are the boys in power armor, or girls, I suppose. You don't necessarily, you don't actually see who they are. But yeah, that's actually one thing. That's actually one thing that's kind of curious within the Enclave. A lot of people sort of, yeah, those are girls in power armor. Very nice indeed. But that's actually one thing that the sort of the Enclave criticism of recent times has gotten a little bit wrong. You know, they sort of said that within the perspective of sort of modern. Oh, there we go. Here are the super mutants. This is what I've been waiting for. But within the sort of modern value system, let's say, they sort of ranked the Enclave below the Caesar's Legion, whereas the Caesar's Legion doesn't really allow women to do anything. They're mostly just slaves, whereas the Enclave's just like, okay, whatever, you know, doesn't really matter. So there we go. It's the sort of justification for hating the Enclave is so flimsy and weak within all spectrums that I just don't necessarily understand. Okay, those are all the super mutants. That was a little bit weak, was it? There was like a few super mutants armed with just pipe stuff. Okay, well, whatever. We annihilated them and recovered the FEV sample. And by the way, how did the super mutants, you know, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It was probably some super mutants from before, from long ago, that were buried down deep within the system and within the facility, and the Brotherhood was trying to get to them and purge them, or maybe they've purged them ahead of time and we just arrived, stole everything, or just, you know, I don't know. We didn't necessarily steal it because we were working with the Enclave, and the Enclave is the rightful owner of this military facility, because it's a military facility for the United States Armed Forces. And since the Enclave is the United States Armed Forces and the government as well, it's our stuff. They were trying to steal it from us, and so it's completely justified. Yep. Okay, let's go back to the oil rig. And woo, this place looks nice. They definitely have cleaned it up a little bit. No more dead ghouls. Everything's looking actually pretty decent. There we go. There we go. That's some nice stuff. And they did actually have some Enclave auxiliaries. I wonder where those came from. But I suppose, you know, the radio signal that the good general. Oh, there we go. That's some good target practice. That's actually really nice. That's some really nice attention to detail to have some dead Brotherhood paladin armor, something like that as target practice. But here we go. Let's talk to the general.
Sir,
Ah, you're back. I'll see to it that the doctor gets the equipment you recovered for her. Now, I take it you noticed Peterson had some new faces with him. Well, let's just say your timing is impeccable. Watch. Our numbers continue to grow. So many disparate forces now united. The Enclave are back. Our work is far from done, though. We now have the numbers to make our presence known to the Commonwealth. I've already briefed Peterson on our next move. We'll be working together again, so I'm sure he'll be happy to fill you in. Before you go, take this uniform. I also see it fitting to grant you access to one of our officers' cabins on level 8. Dismissed.
That was epic. That was amazingly awesome. Just a whole bunch of Enclave stuff coming from the fog. Let's check out this equipment that we received, because I heard that this mod actually does have some really good Enclave equipment. So let's try it. Let's try it on. Okay, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Looking like a proper soldier. A little bit chunky, but I suppose that's the armor doing its thing. It's supposed to protect you, right? Because it's armor. So let's put on our old power armor, and let's get to it. Yeah, there we go. There we go. And so I guess we'll leave it off here. We'll leave it off here because we've done a lot of great stuff for the Enclave. And yeah, so thanks, guys, for watching, and see you next time.